like my scams were good, but any holes that I had through networking, you realize like, oh, I could have done that. Oh, I could have done this. All these little things, suddenly it all comes together and you realize, oh, wow, like it's a huge learning experience, especially if your intention is to get out and do it again. You're going to do it out and do it much, much more efficiently, but also much bigger.
Exactly what I did.
Right. Hey, this is Matt Cox, and I'm going to be doing an interview with Anthony Bucci, and he is an author. He actually got out of prison the same time that I got out. He wrote I believe it's a memoir about his life. It's got an interesting story. I actually listened to a clip of it about a week or so ago, and so yeah, check this out. Your book is about your life, right? Because I watched a clip on you.
My book is about, it's a fiction, but it's based on, actual events and, some of me and other people, but the names have been changed to protect the guilty.
Right. So where are you from? New York? Where were you born?
I'm from Boston.
Boston. Oh, okay. Where were you raised? You were raised in Boston?
Yeah, I was born in Boston, right in the north end of Boston. And then we moved to the outskirts in a city actually called Medford, Massachusetts. Okay. And my father was a club owner in Boston and a club manager. He was a heavy drinker. So I grew up in basically a mentally and physically abusive household when I was real young. And that set the stage for my future.
Right. So how long did he own this? Was it multiple clubs or just one club? How long?
He owned a club called the New Yorker. It was in the combat zone of a real rough section of Boston. He would get drunk at work, come home, and then physically abuse me, my mom. He would fight his friends when he was drunk. He's out of control, alcoholic.
Right.
And so my mother moved us out of there when I was around 6 years old. We moved to a suburban town called Stoneham, Massachusetts, and it was nothing like Medford. It was like this. It's a slow lane compared to the fast lane, but things followed me because I had a cousin who was a mobster, and he took me under his wing while my mother was at work. She worked like 3 jobs. I was a little 9, 10-year-old kid making collections, dropping off envelopes, witnessing what happens when you do not pay. And, it evolved from there.
Did you still see your father? Like, was he still in your life or?
Yes, but he moved to Cleveland and he asked my cousin to look out for me. But my cousin,
your cousin was mob.
He was mobbed up with the Chicago mob. He lived in Vegas. He flew money to Switzerland from Meyer Lansky. He dated Anne Margaret. He was a very colorful guy, and he was like my idol. So my father, instead of giving me to the sheep, he gave me to the wolf, and that molded me into who I was because I was enthralled with that lifestyle.
Right. So did you end up going to school, or did you drop out? Like how
I went to I ended up going to school and went to a Catholic school in Stoneham called St. Patrick's. And then I went on to just junior high and regular high school. I graduated both.
Did you get in trouble? Were you getting in trouble in high school, or?
My trouble was out of high school. Like, I kept it okay in school, but I was hanging around with all the older guys, friends of my cousin, and the trouble happened on the streets. It was like a little architected streets at like 12 years old, running wild.
Well, so when you graduated, like what were you doing? How kind of, when you say you're getting in trouble after you graduated, what was happening?
Well, my trouble was more with other factions and other groups than the law, because I was pretty lucky. They groomed me to never talk on the phone. When you're doing a job, always mask up. And, so I was doing, breaking into houses that they would say to go into, and trucks, robbing trucks, stealing trucks, stuff like that. It was all sanctioned. It was like I was told where to go, what to do, and I did it. No questions asked. Even, I had to get physical once in a while, but I wanted to make my cousin and the guys happy, so I did whatever I had to do.
But yeah, whenever you watch something like Goodfellas or something, they always make it seem like the truck driver, is in on it, when they grab a truck or something. But I'm sure that they're not. I'm sure sometimes they're not in on it.
Exactly. Sometimes they are. I mean, a lot of people get into situations, owing the bookmaker money or, things like that, or getting in debt. And, they came to guys like my cousin or other street guys that I was around. And, a lot of them were inside jobs, but some weren't. Some, were just in the particular merchandise that guys wanted. So that was my thing. And then I turned into selling drugs, because that was easy money too.
And what happened at that point? Like,
I had a good run, actually. I didn't take my first actual pinch that I went away with till I was like 35. But I had other brushes with the law. I had a couple trials I beat. Assault and battery on a police officer. I was in a club fight. And cop hit me with a billy club on the shoulder, and I turned around and broke his jaw. But I didn't know it was a police officer. So I beat that at trial. I had drunken driving, assault with dangerous weapons, threats to kill, just craziness. But I never had a conviction. My first conviction was in 1998 when I pled guilty to distribution of marijuana. And I was sentenced to 41 months in federal prison for my first federal sentence.
For marijuana? How much marijuana?
180 pounds.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of marijuana.
Yeah. Well, not really. But it was enough to, it didn't even reach the mandatory minimum.
Well,
later in life,
I'm sorry. I was going to say, how'd you get grabbed? Did they just pull you over? Were you set up?
Yeah, I had a couple of friends. They got a load of marijuana in from California. They were scared to drive it out of a parking lot. So I got in the truck. I drove it out and bring it to them. And for that, they gave me 180 pounds of pot. Now, I took that pot and I sold it to one person. And just my luck, the two guys that sold it to me got pinched buying 5 kilos of cocaine 3 years later. They said that they sold me marijuana in their statements. Actually, not sold. I could charge with selling, but they told the feds that they gave me 180 pounds for driving the truck. And there was another guy I knew who I was close with too, who got caught selling cocaine also, and said he bought the 180 pounds. So they put this case together against me that was really weak. But they probably just wanted me off the streets because I was, running wild. They were trying to get me for years. And they put this case together, and they threatened to indict my mother for money laundering if I didn't accept the plea. So I accepted a 41-month plea for a ghost weed. Absolutely no evidence, not one phone call, nothing, just so my mother wouldn't get in trouble. And that's what I did. I got 41-month sentence. I started in the law, went to a camp. It was like crime school. I just made contacts, met new guys.
Right.
I got out 41 months later running. I see you laughing, so you know.
Oh, I know. Like I always say, like I went into prison. I feel like I went into prison with like a GED, and I got out with like a master's degree, because, you go in there and like my scams were good, but any holes that I had through networking, you realize like, oh, I could have done that. Oh, I could have done this. All these little things, suddenly it all comes together and you realize, oh, wow, like it's a huge learning experience, especially if your intention is to get out and do it again. You're going to do it out and do it much, much more efficiently, but also much bigger.
Exactly what I did.
Right.
He bilked some of the nation's largest banks out of an estimated $55 million because $50 million wasn't enough and $60 million seemed excessive. He is the most interesting man in the world.
I don't typically commit crimes, but when I do, it's bank fraud. Stay greedy, my friends.
Support the channel. Join Matthew Cox's Patreon.
Hit the ground running. I upped the ante. I started dealing with like big numbers in the weed game. I was going back and forth to California. I had a place in Vegas. And I took my second pinch, believe it or not, had nothing to do with marijuana. It was a one-time 15-minute conspiracy, helping out a friend of mine, who I considered a friend. Cocaine dealer was getting his brother all messed up on coke, so we warned him to stop selling it. He didn't, and we robbed him and took 3 kilos from him. I ended up not making a penny, giving it back to my friend because he was hot up on cash and needed money. Not making 1 cent, I got 21 years in federal prison. My friend turned on me, took the stand for 3 days. One of my co-defendants was a cop. He was from a police force, and they wanted me to give him up. And I wouldn't. When I get arrested, was looking at 20 years, I immediately lawyered up. I didn't say one syllable to the feds. There's not one statement, not even my mother's maiden name. And the reason I operate like that is not just because I was brought up like that with the code of silence. It's just that personally, I couldn't even look in the mirror if I sent somebody away like they were doing to me, away from their kids and family and all that. So to me, it's more than doing the right thing. It's more personal. It's like I do the right thing because of myself, first and foremost. And so that's what I did. And because I wouldn't cooperate, there was no plea offer. And I had to go to trial. I was forced to go to trial, and I got 21 years for a one-day, 15-minute conspiracy involving only $84,000 of cocaine. I didn't make a penny, and I got, like I said, that massive amount of time. So I was very, very bitter when I entered the prison system.
I mean, did you appeal it? Did you file a 2055? You did all of it. You went through it all?
I did everything. I actually became a paralegal in prison, and they called me, the First Circuit called me the poster child for tenacity. I appealed so many things. But, it's not easy to win. I actually had a lawyer one time tell me, pack your bags, you're going home. And what they did is they took a state case into the federal court to deny me, something that had never been done before on a courtroom closure issue, because the judge closed the courtroom to the public for no apparent reason other than seating. There wasn't enough room. So what he did when I thought I was going home, my lawyer said, pack your stuff. Like I said, he took the state case and said that my lawyer should have known better and should have appealed. So I lost. And so I remained in prison. And I did 16 years, 15 and a half, 16, almost 16 years. And like I said, I became a paralegal. And in prison, when I first got to prison, I hit the ground running. I had it was pedal to the metal. Anybody crossed me, I was ready to fight or whatever they wanted to do. I was still in that mode of violence and anger, and I was very, very bitter because once again, guys I trusted, guys I loved, gave me up. So when I had enough, though, I had like 3 years in solitary confinement under my belt between the prison sentences. And I was lying in bed in prison, and I said, this is it. End my life, I have to change. And I chose the latter. I started writing my book, Infinity Crew. It's based on true crimes of guys I helped, do legal work for. And I've changed the names, obviously, to protect the guilty. And it's basically it's a fictional account of true life stories for, and my characters are 5 different races, because in Boston, especially in the Parental prison system, we all stick together. Like, are you from Florida?
Yeah.
So if you ever ran into Boston guys in the can, you know that if something breaks out, all Boston guys have to be there for each other, or there's a problem. So if you don't jump in for a Boston guy, if he's in a beef or he's getting jumped, then you're in violation, and then there's a problem.
So they're all in the Boston car.
The Boston car, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I based my book basically on the solidarity and the brotherhood and the way Boston guys operate in prison, but I bring this to the streets. And it's, and I'm just looking for some help or a break. I mean, I have good content. I have 5-star ratings on Amazon, and it just, you know how it is. It's just breaking into the industry. That's not as easy as it's given, well, as it appears to be, because you see all these stories of guys breaking in, but there's probably millions of guys that don't make it.
Yeah, it sounds good. Everybody thinks like, oh, you got a good story, it'll be a movie, for sure. Well, listen, that's not how it works. Yeah, how many people you kind of know that because how many horrible movies have you seen that you're like, how did this story get made? It got made because Tom knows Jennifer from high school, and Jennifer's husband works at Sony Pictures, and they're looking for this kind of story, and you happen to have that kind of story, and it doesn't matter that the story's horrible. Like, the content of what is produced is more a handshake deal or more of a friend of a friend than it is the actual content. Like,
you're right.
Like I've got a great story. I don't have a movie. And everybody says, well, it should be a movie. And trust me, tons of producers have contacted me.
I do the same thing too. I watch shows and I scout them out, and I say to myself, my story is so much better than this, yet I can't make it. And every time I get traction, it's always the same thing. Well, we're working on something else. We'll get back to you. COVID, put us so far behind. You've heard all the stories too. Yeah. Yeah, you have a very colorful story. Before I came on here, I researched you, and I was like, wow, I should be interviewing this guy.
I've been interviewed a bunch of times, and I've done the things, and I've listened, I've had the meetings, and what I focus on now is more trying to get, the stories I've written, trying to get those made into documentaries, because you get a documentary made, it's easier to take a existing documentary that's been made and turn it into a film or as some kind of a series, so it's the low-hanging fruit is documentaries, and some of the documentaries are amazing. So, I'm working on that, and I've got a few of them in the works, but it's the same thing. It's like, we're partnering with so-and-so, we're going to have a meeting next week, then it's next month, then you have the meeting, we're going to have another meeting. We got to talk to Bob and Tom. Then we have another meeting with 6 people on it, and we all talk for an hour, and they all have their running assignments, and then they have to get together with the team and discuss it. And then they have to meet with this other production company. It's like, man, it's been a year. Like, it has been a year. So that's just what happens. And it just spins and spins, and everybody keeps telling me, yeah, but once it does happen, it starts happening much quicker. Well, what is that?
I've heard almost the same similar stories. I had one guy said the production company read the book. It loves it. It loves your story. They're just having one little wrinkle, how to make Vinny, the older Vinny. There's a lot of scenes like flashbacks. They have to work that out, but they're very interested. They're going to make you an offer next week.
Yeah.
That was like 60 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I'm still in a hoodie.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I know. Trust me. I'm actually working on a story right now. I'm working on a story right now with the production company. But who knows? Like, they literally came to me. We talked about the story. They love the story. I'm like, yeah, I haven't finished the story. They're like, we're asking you to finish the story. So, but
don't you wish you had the money to just back it yourself?
Yeah. Well, I keep telling myself, look, I only need one to go through. I need one to go through. and then the rest of them should start to fall in line.
Matthew, why don't you just do a couple bank fraud jobs and then do it yourself?
Yeah, well, the judge was very, very stern about my ability to commit fraud again. He was very clear that wasn't something that I could do anymore. Yeah, I think, oh, listen, I've had sizzle reels shot on some of my stories,
Wow.
I've had stuff literally like the production company comes down, they spend 15 or 20 grand to shoot a sizzle reel for a week.
Wow.
And then they've got it, they're pitching it, and it's, just keeps getting pushed back. And listen, I even had one that was looking like it was going to happen. And then Time Warner came in and merged with the Discovery Channel and stopped everything. It was like, oh my God. It's like, you can't make this shit up. I had a meeting with a production company. I was supposed to go to meet with Blumhouse Production in LA. They love the concept. They love the story. We'd had a bunch of meetings. I'm supposed to fly out there, and COVID happened.
Yep.
I mean, and then of course that just put everything off. And then the people that were involved in the whole thing, 6-8 months later, they don't even work there anymore. So, it's just one thing. And I keep thinking, what does it matter? It's not like it's my full-time gig. I answer emails. I take meetings. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, that's fine. I'm happy being out of prison. I can watch YouTube whenever I want. I have a subscription to Netflix. I get to turn the channel. I don't have to write it on the schedule to ask everybody if we can watch this show next Tuesday. I can watch a show. I can do whatever I want. So, if I want to sleep in, I do. I don't sleep in, but if I wanted to, I could. So there's.
Yeah, that was the hardest thing for me. The most difficult thing for me in prison was taking orders, and you had to let go of all your power and all your attitude. But once you master it, it becomes a very valuable tool because you can use it from any facet of life. Like now, I have patience. Before, I didn't have any patience at all. Like a guy cut me off or something before. The people I used to have road rage and all that stuff. Now nothing bothers me because the prison experience of getting strip searched 1 million times, bending over, spread your ass, all that stuff, that's private and, things you don't want to share with people, you had to. So It makes you actually a stronger person from the experience. I got a lot of good things out of prison. Then, you can look at things two ways in life. Either you look at the good or the bad, and I take all the good from that bad experience.
Yeah,
that's how I'm living my life.
I definitely shrug off all of the things that upset other people. I just shrug off. I'm like, that's say just like you driving, somebody cuts you off, somebody does this. It's like, it's fine. I'll take a little bit longer. It's not that big of a deal. If nothing really bothers me, but I do have to constantly remind myself to be humble, be appreciative, because that whole wanting to be a big shot, wanting to do everything you want to do and you don't have the money to do it, that you have to step back every once in a while and go, wait a second. I could put that on a credit card, but it's like, but then I don't want to run my credit card up, but I got to make payments. And what if this thing doesn't happen next month? And you know what? We're not going to dinner tonight. You know what I'm saying? It's fine. I'm good with lean cuisine, with frozen dinners. I'm good with that. Yeah. So, you just step back and it's to me, it's just like life is so good out here. Why jeopardize that?
Every day we got to work on post-traumatic growth, turning that evil, nasty experience into something positive. I know for me, now my mantra is compassion is now my strength. Things before that would really bother me, upset me, don't really bother me anymore, like I said. And helping people now is my niche. I love to help people. I've done some podcasts and I've got some direct messages, DMs, and, thanking me so much and hearing my story actually helps people because, I was in the ashes and they're seeing me rise, but I'm not rising to the level I want yet, but I'm sending positive vibes to the universe because I strongly believe, and I hope you do, of the law of attraction and, believing in yourself, having self-love, because if you don't love yourself, the universe is never going to reward you with abundance. And I'm trying to help people. I became a life coach since I've been out. I life coach people for free. I've never charged one person. When I was in prison, well, I'm going to get back to that. I want to share some things I did, but one of the things I did was train dogs for the handicap, and giving back to society. I wanted to help, and another thing I did was I trained a guy from the Boston Marathon. He lost his leg, and he had a cane corso dog, and it was really pulling him. So I spent a lot of time, and I trained the dog to walk without pulling and walk off leash. And, he's very happy. But I don't charge people for this stuff because it's my way of giving back, trying to, be a better member of society and, and do good things, because good things will come back to you. I don't expect them. And nothing I do, I expect, but, it's just the way it is. It's the law of attraction, and that's how I'm living my life. I'm not bitter. I'm not mad. And it all goes back to, like I said, when I was in prison, I got in trouble. And I was at the end of my line. I was literally, like I said, in the ashes, in the darkness. And my kids were mad at me for going away again. They stopped writing me. It had been years since I talked to them. My friends fell off the map. Guys that were helping support me and, give me, spending money and all that, they dropped off. All I had was my mom. I couldn't end my life, but I just needed to change, and I did. And when I got out of solitary confinement, guys Boston were like, "What, did they break you? You were down there for 6 months and you came back a new guy." Because I got out, I volunteered and took care of sick and terminally ill inmates that were in the prison. I gave up my preferred housing and moved to a lousier part of the prison just to, help them. And I ended up helping 4 guys. And then when I became camp eligible at that prison, the warden, who one guy I helped till 2 days before he died, and all he did was rave about me at the hospital. So the warden came, said, "You're doing tremendous things. When you get camp eligible, anywhere you want to go, I'll send you." So I said, okay. So I transferred to Massachusetts, to Fort Devens, because my mother, she was around in Massachusetts. And my mom came to visit me every month, no matter where I was, New York, Pennsylvania, it didn't matter, New Hampshire. So I wanted to do something nice for her. So I went to Devens. I volunteered and I got in the dog program, and that's where I became a service dog handler. And I graduated 3 dogs to, different places, a hospital for troubled kids, a courthouse where children would be testifying. They were like consoling them, and, PTS dog for a guy that was in the war. So, something I'm proud of, but it was my way of giving back. And, I educated myself in prison. I took 55 educational classes. I became a paralegal. And probably one of the things I'm most proud of is when prison reform hit in 2019, in 2016, let me back up, my mom had a debilitating stroke through her spine. It was a real stroke, and she's paralyzed. My father had died while I was in prison. My sister died the year I was in prison. I got locked up. It was just my mom and me now for immediate family. So I went to the warden and I asked for an immediate release. They said no for a few years. But when prison reform hit in 2019, it changed the law. You can now go to the federal court. So all these things I did to change myself as a human being and be a better person, be somebody society and my kids could be proud of, ended up helping me. And I had no ulterior motive at the time. So I put a motion in to like I said, to the warden. He rubber stamped, denied me. Then I went to federal court, and the judge saw the case, gave me a hearing date. I got a pro bono lawyer who ended up being a friend of mine that I met in the visiting room. And she would come visit me and we would discuss law, because she, thought I was okay at the law. And I would help her, give her insight from a prisoner's point of view, what we're going through here and stuff that she could bring up in motions. And she volunteered to help me. We had a hearing, and I watched it over the prison, over the video. and I won an immediate release in October of 2019. I was the first federal inmate to win a parental compassionate release. I authored the motion. That girl, my friend, Allison Corey, she argued it, and I walked out of prison 2 years early, and I was the first one in the United States to win a parental compassionate release. I set precedent, and I get messages all the time from guys that have gone home thanking me for finding that loophole in prison reform. So, that was a good feeling, because a lot of people have gone home to help their mothers and fathers because of me. I was the first one. And that's what I'm doing today. I help my mom. She's handicapped. She's paralyzed. I'm her caregiver. I'm showing her a better quality of life. I take her to the casino to see her brother, things that she couldn't do because I wasn't home and I was all she had. So that's what I'm doing now. So it's, things are okay. Last year I had a setback. I went all the way back to that dark place. When I got out of prison, I mended my relationship with my children. My toughest critic was my middle daughter. I had 4 kids, Talina, Tama, Carissa, and Dante. Tama, my middle one, she, like I said, she was my biggest critic. She was working at Encore Casino as a detective there, and then she had some contacts, and she became a state trooper right the year I got home, and we mended out. And anything that, was bothering us, we mended it. We had an unbelievable, terrific, closest father-daughter bond possible. And she took the job. She mastered. She did unbelievable at the academy. They were raving about her. She cut 17 inches or something off her hair. She had hair all the way down to her ass. And, they were always picking on her and stuff. And she was unbreakable. She said, you guys can't break me. She was in terrific shape. And she became a state trooper. She loved it. I was so proud of her. I used to cook for her every night. We talked every day. I was the only one who had a key to her apartment. That's how close we were. And she pulled over last March to help a disabled boat motorist, and she got killed. So I was in that truck hit her. So I was in that dark place. I have been in that dark place, but I'm getting out of it now. I'm sharing my story because hopefully somebody else that sees it, can benefit from it, because I've had a lot of messages, like I said, from people saying, I heard your story, and it made me get up off the couch and start living my life again and move forward, because you're doing it. And if you can do it, anybody can do it. And that's what I'm doing. I'm living every day to the limit, the best I can. Yes, I'm grieving, and I'm able to finally talk about it now, but I know my daughter would want me to move forward, finish my Infinity Crew project, get this made into a movie or series. I have both written already, and that's what I'm doing. I'm striving forward every day. I have a positive mindset, and I'm going to continue to rise until I am that Phoenix, because I will get a deal, and I have that. It's definitely going to happen. It's just the right person has to see it. Never know. Maybe you might get a deal and say, hey, I got a guy I know, has something, or I might get a deal and help you. It's how it works. Making good contact with good people like yourself.
Right. What is it that you're hoping? You're hoping for a movie or a series of some kind?
Yeah, I wrote the series. I have a pitch document. I have everything, needed to sell it. And, I've had great reviews on Amazon. That's where it's available. And, I just don't have because everybody who reads it says that I could see this as a movie. I could definitely see this as a series. It's awesome. My book is a cross between The Town and Ocean's 11. And, it's something saved my life. So I put my heart and soul into it, because I started writing this in solitary confinement when I decided to move forward and be a better person. So like I tell everybody, this book saved my life. So I just need, like the right person, the right investor to look at it and have belief in me, and, like me as a person, and, want to help. And that's what I'm, looking for. But these podcasts to me are a channel to help people who are in a dark place, share my 180, my story of redemption, and how if I can change, anybody can change, because I was a guy that didn't care about nobody or nothing, just Anthony. And now I'm the opposite. I'm compassionate, and I love the fact that I feel now, and my heart went from black to ruby red. I'm living a good life. Might not be profitable yet, but it'll come, just like you. Just stay positive, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Look, this is the thing too, is like, I was, I've talked to a guy the other day, and I thought to myself, I actually said to him, I said, what's funny is I'm enjoying the whole going through, talking, doing the meetings, the whole process, right? Like in a way, I thought, I said the other day to this guy, I was like, it may be the worst thing that happens is I do get a deal. You know what I mean? But like, you get a deal, and then one day you go see the movie, and then it's over. It's like I'm enjoying, it's kind of like, taking a road trip. Like, you enjoy the road trip, and then you get there and you're like, yeah, the destination wasn't all that great. So, I'm just enjoying every day. Like, I'm supposed to go meet with a production crew in about a week or so in Miami, and I talk to people, and I do speaking engagements, and I do all these things, but I have to constantly kind of stop myself, like, and just, enjoy just that moment of like, wow, like, you just got out of prison and you're about to get on a plane and fly to New York to be interviewed by, this production crew. Like, that's amazing. Just walking through the airport, getting on a plane is amazing. Especially from 3-4 years ago, you're laying in a bunk bed,
stealing concrete walls. Yeah.
Yeah. 4 years ago, I'm laying in a bunk bed thinking, how am I even going to be able to support myself? And now
I think you're being a little, sorry.
Oh, no, it's all right. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think you're being a little humble, because when your story hits, it's going to be really big, and you're going to be making a lot of money, and you're not going to want for nothing. So you're going to, great. Yes, that day it hits, or whatever it takes off, you might be thinking like that, but the aftermath of everything and how your life is going to change, bro, it's going to be unbelievable. And that's how I've been visioning it for years. So when I was locked up and I was lying in my bunk looking at the ceiling, I would actually dream awake of that red carpet, and I'm going to see it, because my stuff is amazing. It's a masterpiece novel, and I'm going to get there, and I believe it, and I believe 100% in myself, in what I wrote, and how it saved my life. And even if a fact of, if I get a documentary first and somebody sees me, and because they're offering me documentaries too, like you, and maybe it'll be the reverse way. First a documentary, then somebody will take a liking to us, and and take a chance, but they'll see it'll be worth it, because I see you're a man of discipline also, and being in prison, it's instilled in us to most guys that are
I was awake at
real guys.
I was awake at 3 o'clock this morning, came down, wrote for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, went upstairs, laid down with my girlfriend for like 30 minutes, got up, came back down, worked for a little bit more. I actually just noticed a minute ago when I was looking, like, I got paint on my hand. I was painting a painting, just before I came in here and turned this on. Like, it's all day. I do this until my girlfriend gets home, she makes dinner, and then, so it's like 10, 12, 15 hours a day sometimes. But I don't really feel like it's work, because I'm doing what I want. I'm probably making minimum wage, but I'm also probably working 60 to 80 hours a week, so I'm able to pay my bills. So I'm thrilled with the way things are going. I have a good time. I enjoy my life, and like, it's funny because even right now, I'm so focused on getting the story that I'm working on done. But every little piece is like such a great little adventure. It's like, how do I write this? How do I say this? What do I put in? What do I not put in? I'm ordering documents, and then the documents come in. My girlfriend even gets into it now. She helps me order documents through the Freedom of Information Act, and she's like, oh my gosh, we just got this in. You know, we're trying to figure out like, you know, who started the investigation, like who cooperated. Like you know, I always heard it was this person. Then we get those documents, and that person did cooperate, but we couldn't figure out why. You know what I'm saying? Like it was a girl. Like, why is she cooperating? And we noticed in the notes from the detective that her boyfriend's always there. So then it was like she's making the calls, but she wasn't arrested. So then we order all of his documents, and we find out, guess what? A couple weeks before they first sat down and started making controlled buys, her boyfriend was arrested for being a felon in possession of a firearm. So he and she started making buys. Not because she got in trouble, but it's her boyfriend, so she does it with him. So it's like we started, you know, we're slowly unraveling this case because the people that are involved, they just don't know. They don't really know exactly what's happening, and they don't, even if they do, they don't have the detectives' names, they don't have the dates. So we order the documents, and I slowly get to put together a story. And then when it's done, people are like, this is an amazing story, but it really wasn't an amazing story until I researched it and put it together. It was a couple newspaper articles and a bunch of people that didn't really know what even happened in their own case. So I love that. I love putting that together, and I love having fun. It's like being a little detective. I'm doing the same thing now that I was doing in prison. Only I don't have to, you know, only I'm not teaching GED and the real estate course. You know, I make videos and I do paintings and I write stories, and, you know, I have fun, and then hopefully something happens, and, you know, it's good, you know, and it's funny because it's a lot like you. Like I was just thrilled to get out and be able to be there for my mom. You know what I mean? Like that's
great.
I was so afraid she was going to die before I got out of prison. She's died since then, but at least I got out for a few years. I was able to spend a couple of years with her.
Priceless.
Yeah, exactly.
You got out early too, right? You won something to reduce your sentence, I read.
No, I got my sentence reduced twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it was, unlike you, it was for cooperation, you know, cooperation that the government wouldn't give me. Like they asked me to be interviewed by 2 different programs and write an ethics and fraud course. And then they wouldn't give me the reduction. It's like, well, you came to me, you asked me to do this. You said you would reduce my sentence. And they said, no, not enough. So I had to file a 2255 for that. And then my second reduction was another inmate I was dealing with. I worked with the government on his case. He was hiding Ponzi scheme money. And what's even funnier is because of my cooperation, he got 6 more months. And 2 years later, he got out on the CARES Act. Even the time that he got, the extra 6 months that he got didn't matter anyway. He went from 19 and a half years to 20, and he got out in like 7 years. So, but once again, they wouldn't give me anything for that. I had to file a 2255 on that and get a 5-year reduction for that. And so I got out just in time to be there, you know, for my mom. And, you know, no matter how you feel about that, like I'd have cut every guy's head off in that fucking prison to be able to spend 2 more years with my mother. Like that's all I cared about. So,
I hear you.
But yeah, I mean, yeah. Oh no, I was supposed to get out when my out date was 2030.
Okay.
That's a long time. I was supposed to be in prison right now.
That was too much time anyways for that case.
26 years and 4 months for $6 million. I mean, I was in prison and guys were coming in with $20 million in loss, $30 million, and they're getting like 5 years, 10 years. And I'm like, how the fuck did I get 26 years? This is insane.
Right?
But anyway, so I'm glad you got out and you're able to be there for your mom. Like that's
The better thing was, then I got to spend time with my daughter. Had I not got out, I would have got out February of 22, 1 month before her accident, and I would have never rebuilt my relationship with her and had the close, beautiful bond that we had. So it's like, to me, it's a blessing. Even though I had to do all that time, the fact that I got out and I can every day know I had the best relationship with my daughter. That's what keeps me going every day, because had I not won that motion and stayed in prison, I'd be living a life of guilt. And I don't have that right now.
You know, the other thing is, like, the lifestyle you were living, you may have been killed. You may not even have made it to the age you are right now. You may have been, if you were on the street, like, you might have beat that case that the case you lost at trial. You may have beat that case and been shot dead 3 months later on some other dope deal or some other whatever. You know, you don't know. So it really, you know, losing that case and going to prison may have been a blessing. You'll just never know.
To me, the 41 months wasn't enough. So did I need 21 years? No. But anything less than 10 or 15 wouldn't have changed me, I don't think. So, you know, it took that much time to change a guy like me, the way I was maneuvering and operating, and reckless and selfish, and, you know, not there for my kids when they were doing their homework, and, you know, thinking that a father was just to provide, you know, the best of food and clothing and cars, when there's so much more to that. And I've learned that the hard way, and I can't ever have it back. But, you know, I do the best I can every day to, you know, live life right and, you know, do the right thing.
It's funny you say that, because I say the same thing. I always say, look, like, you're never going to convince me I deserve 26 years, but I definitely needed to go to prison. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no doubt, like, you know, once in a while I'll talk to somebody and say, man, I can't believe that, you know, that they sent you to prison for all that time. I'm like, well, you know, look, like, nobody sent me. Like, I sent me to prison. Like, the government didn't frame me. They didn't lie about this. They didn't lie. Like, I'm the one that made me go to prison. Like, it's not like I'm innocent. You know, I mean,
no.
You know, so there's tons of guys in, you know, there's not tons, but there are guys in there that I would read their case and I'd be like, how did you end up going to prison? Like, I got a buddy that invested $50,000 with a guy. That guy opened up, well, there was supposed to be a fin clinic, but fin became illegal. So, but they built out like a little medical center, little clinic. So the doctors were like, look, let's go ahead and do pain management. Okay, so they do pain management. 2-3 years later, they end up getting busted for it being a pill mill. My buddy who put up the $50,000 lives in L.A. The clinic, which he was not managing or running, was in New Orleans. He gets indicted. He goes to trial because he's like, I didn't have anything to do with this. He loses at trial. He gets 19 years.
Wow.
You know, like, it's like, what are you talking about? They had people on the stands. They had drug addicts on the stands that they'd arrested that were saying that I came in and he was there. I came in and he gave me my prescription, or he gave me, I was sick and he gave me a couple pills. Even though they proved that he was in LA when that patient, during every single one of that patient's appointments. Like, I wasn't there. Didn't matter. Went to prison. He's in prison.
The jury, know what happens? Because I went to trial, I know. It's so intimidating. You walk in that courtroom and they have that high ceiling, and it's United States of America versus Anthony J Bucci, or whatever that guy's name is. You're dead right from the start.
Yeah.
It's like crazy. And those prosecutors are so well schooled, so intelligent, it's like, no matter what lawyer you get, you're dead, because they have all the money and resources. And, you know, once in a while you win a case if you have the right jury and the right mindset of the jury. But, you know, I had a guy, I thought I was going to win my trial. He winked at me halfway through. Then they played a body wire that they wore on my co-defendant. And the judge said to the jury, you can not use the content of this body wire against Mr. Bucci, only against my co-defendant. But once they heard it and heard my co-defendant talking that I was involved in the crime, how could I win? And he wouldn't sever the trials. And then I did the 2255, and I argued that, When you drop a drop of ink into a glass of milk, you can never get it out. In other words, they're tainted. But you know what they said? They said, we have great faith in the American jury system today, and they denied me. Like, you can't win. So I took it all. I took this life lesson hard. And 15 and a half years I lost. But you know what? I was guilty. I was running the streets amok. I was wrong. I wasn't there with my kids when I should have been. And a real tough guy is the guy, and I'm telling the public this because it's the truth. The real tough guy is the guy that's there for his wife and kids, and when they wake up in the middle of the night having a bad dream, he puts them back to bed. And that's the real tough guy. And I wasn't a real tough guy back then. And I'm trying to change and hopefully someday become one. Beating up people and doing all that crazy stuff isn't tough. It's stupid. It's foolish and it's selfish. And that's how I'm not going to live my life anymore.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to a guy one time and he was like, I was just trying to provide for my family. And I was like, you want to try and provide for your family? Like, you took the shitty way out. Like, that's the shitty way out. You went and robbed the fucking bank. If you really wanted to provide for your family, you go get a second job. Yep. Like, you went in the bank, you got caught, you went to fucking jail for 15 years. Like, that's not providing for your family. That was the easy way out. That was your excuse.
You know what the crazy thing is, Matthew? Is we are intelligent human beings. We wrote books. How many people write books? All those years we both lost in prison, we could have been making millions of dollars. You'd probably already have a movie deal. I'd have one. And we wouldn't even be talking right now. We'd be in my mansion in LA. But instead, we took the hard route, and hopefully things turn out the way they're supposed to.
Yeah. I was going to say one more thing because I'm thinking about it, is that I had a buddy who went to trial, and, during voir dire, when they're picking the jury, and the lawyer was questioning one of the potential jurors, and he said, do you think you can find, my guilty, my client not guilty if, you're presented evidence that doesn't prove that he's guilty? And the guy goes, I don't think so. And he goes, why do you say that? He said, well, he was indicted for 34 counts. He did something. Like, you can't have that guy. Like, that's what they think. He just said it. Most of the jurors don't say it. He's like, I remember he said, he goes, obviously he was struck. He said, but I was like, well, at least you said it. That's what all the juries, I think. They said, well, he's been indicted. He must have done something.
Exactly.
So, it's impossible to get it. Well, it's very unlikely that people get a fair trial. And just like you said, they have all the money. You'd have to be a multi-millionaire and blow all your money on an amazing defense and still end up with a great lawyer to be able to get a fair trial.
Yeah.
So, but, well, listen, I don't know, if you have anything else you want to cover or.
Well, I'd like to say anybody who hasn't read my book you could please support me and grab it on Amazon or, 70 other, the Barnes and Nobles and 70 other platforms online. All you got to do is Google Infinity Crew, Anthony J Bucci. I am the Convicted Vegan on Instagram. I'm vegan. And Anthony J Bucci on Facebook. I'd be honored if you guys followed me and became friends and even want to talk, DM me. I handle my own stuff. I'm just a regular guy now. I always was. I'm doing the right thing, and if I can help anybody, I'd be honored to help.
Hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do me a favor, if you like the interview, hit the subscribe button, share the video, leave me a comment in the comment section, and we're gonna leave the link for Anthony's book on Amazon in the description box. So I appreciate you guys watching, and check out the rest of the videos on the channel. Thank you. See you.